You know what time it is, no matter where you've been. So let's do it again. Listen up and let the sun shine in. We've got soul training. Time to practice what you preach. Ooh, yeah. Yes, we do. We've got soul training.
Hey, Daniel, how have you been?
Just right, brother. How about you?
I was hoping you'd say that. I'm like the middle of the pillow. I'm just kind of cool and trying to get through it.
So,
Go ahead.
how are you feeling now?
I feel great. As we record this, I'm hoping people will be listening 3 to 5 to 10 years from now. But as we record this, we're still almost 1 year into a worldwide pandemic, and I dodged the virus for almost a year, and then all of a sudden it got me, like, a little dodgeball in the PE, in your favorite PE class snuck up on me, and I tested positive Saturday, and I'm doing good. I feel great. I'm just adhering to the protocols of quarantine guidelines and things like that. So that's why we're recording remotely. You and Big Show Joe are in the comfortable confines of our studios with a very, very special guest, Mr. Dale Byrum. Dale is a tremendous individual who's done a lot for the church, who's done a lot for the kingdom, who's done a lot for lots of folks, both locally and internationally from a mission standpoint. So I think we are very blessed to have him with us at this time, and we're hopefully going to ask a few questions. He's going to share some of his experiences with us, some of his insight, and I always say that you never get a second chance to make a first impression, and Dale made a very good first impression on me a few years ago with his attention to detail. The first time I met him, he was there for a mission meeting at our congregation, and he had examined and studied our website. And he, never met him, but yet he began telling me things about me, and I was impressed with his interest level from our congregation and for somebody like me who was just trying to learn himself. So always been impressed with Dale. He's a great speaker, does a lot of great work. So Dale, tell us about what brought you to Glasgow, or we know that Big Show Joe invited you. What got you from secular work to mission work?
I got into secular work in 1989. We spent most of the 1980s living in New Zealand, 2 different times. We worked with an existing congregation, then we planted a new congregation, and we were there 4 years, met our numbers goals, and when we did, we came home. And so I got into secular work and bounced back and forth between sales and manufacturing for about 19 years. In 2008, took a trip to the Philippines, and it took me about 2 hours to fall in love with the Filipino people. So I knew that at that point that even just prior to that, I just knew that God wanted me back in full-time ministry and didn't know where. When I made that trip, I knew exactly where I needed to be.
So in 2008, that's what hooked you. Just within a few hours, you just went on a mission trip, and you saw the amount of work that needed to be done and the amount of potential that existed, sounds like.
Yeah. I don't know. I went there and literally it took me about 2 hours to fall in love with Filipino people, and they stole my heart. And I always tell them when I go there, I said, every time I come here, you steal a piece of my heart and have to keep coming back, try to get it, and you steal more. So I'll be coming till I die. And hopefully the Lord agrees with that.
I think mission work is kind of like that, isn't it, Dale? That it's like malaria. It gets in your blood, and you just it stays there.
And there's
no malaria.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, it's even better. There's no cure for it.
That's right. There's no cure.
Yeah. It is a hard issue, but it's a good one.
It is. It flares up now and then, and there's nothing new about it. You got to do mission work.
Yeah. The only question, we just wanted to talk to you because we value your input and your insight, and I've got a friend of mine who tells me that listening's free, so I try to ask as many questions as I can from someone who, like you, who possesses a lot of the knowledge and wisdom and experience. And just a couple of questions I wanted to ask. I know Big Show Joe and Diamond Daniel Gaines, they may have a few questions too. But I will just, and I think I know the answer to this, but what's the easiest part about mission work for you? Say you've already touched on a little of it.
Yeah, well, the easiest part for me is loving the people. And again, it goes back to mission identity. I think people find their niche and God will take them and lead them, either lead them or if they go different places and kind of search for where they want to be, if they want to be in mission work, they will land in a spot where they think, this is it. This is where I want to be. It's better than any place I've been. And there's no right or wrong. It's just right or wrong for the individual. We just feel like we have a fit, not only for the work, but the people, the culture, and all that kind of thing. And like Daniel, his mission identity is Tanzania in Africa, and has been for many years. Tom Hall up in Mount Pleasant, his is in the Caribbean, mine's in the Philippines.
Okay. Well, I like the phrases that I heard you all talking a few minutes ago before we got started about your identity. And I never really thought about it that way. And but you're right that when I think of the Philippines, I think of you. When I think of you, I think of the Philippines. And this is not really a question. I guess more of a comment for me. I've you and Daniel, you all traveled extensively and are 110% committed to mission work internationally. I've only gone on 2 mission international trips, 2012 and 2013. But I'll tell you the point I'm making is a lot of people don't think about it, but you've got to be in some pretty good shape to be a missionary. And I look at, you're in great shape. I think for, you're older than me, but you sure look a lot younger than me. And that's something I learned in 2012. I know, Joe, we were together and, we were packing a 60-pound locker across a muddy soccer field uphill to a community building.
I don't know what group you were with. I didn't pack any 60 pounds. Maybe you were carrying mine too or something.
I think you maybe opened the door for me when I finally got there.
Maybe.
But that was pre-COVID about a year ago. My children, my 2 teenagers, we were starting to have conversations about mission work. And that was going to be one of the things I was going to talk to them about is you got to be in pretty good shape. Can you speak to that about the physical side that people don't think about? You're going to travel internationally?
Yeah, I really think that's one of the lesser things that people consider when you're doing foreign missions, because everything is different. I mean, literally everything. Just travel, your body clock, it's upside down when you're halfway around the world. Daniel knows that. You show up, you wake up 2 or 3 in the morning for about a week and until your body clock gets right, and your digestive system, it's a whole 9 yards. And if you're not in really, really good health and staying good, you can be in good health, but not be in good shape. And I'm 65, so it's even more important for me to stay in good shape, not just be in good health. And so you got to eat right and do all the things and get your health to a maximum point, where when you get there, it's going to go downhill a little bit because you just don't control your environment and your food and all the schedule and everything that goes on. So you're right. Yeah, that's a really key point. That's important to know.
And there's the healthcare availability too that isn't always the same there as it is here. And so if something does go wrong, it's not always as easy to get it treated.
Exactly.
So, Dale, before we progress too much further, can you give us just like a 60-second nutshell overview of the nature of the mission work you're involved in right now so our listener knows where you're coming from?
Well, primarily we are church planters, and we plant churches, and then the objective is to get those churches up and running on their own 2 feet. We ground them in the faith with good, solid doctrine, teaching, so on. Secondarily, though, we raise up leadership. And in the Philippines, it's different in every country, but in the Philippines, it's the young people that are driving the impetus for the church and growth and what's going on. And I make the statement word for word every time I stand in front of a sporting church. I say the church of our Lord is really bright in the Philippines because of its young people.
So what is it you see in the young people in the Philistines? in the Philippines? The Philistine young people.
Yeah.
What is it that you see maybe that's different in the young people in the I still want to say Philippines, in the Philippines,
Yeah.
as opposed to maybe young people here or other Western cultures that might make them more susceptible to the gospel?
You know, the
receptive?
Filipinos are a really special group of people. They're even a special group of Asian, and not all Asians are the same. You know, they all have their own different cultures as well. And for various reasons, I don't have time to get into. The Philippines have a very unique culture, but they're very familial. They're very generational in their culture and their society. On the same property, they may live. You know, the grandparents, parents, and the kids may live all on the same property, and it may be 5 little huts on half an acre, but they all live there, and they're used to hard work. They're not lazy people at all. They don't ask for anything. They don't complain. And so all of those things rolled together really makes for a pretty good situation in the church. They love being together. They're very social people. And they don't like to do anything alone. Anytime they travel, they go work or do anything, they always like to have, the word companion is a key word in their culture. They like to have companions everywhere they go, just because. even in like a hotel room or like a dorm room, something like that. You know, we Americans, we like to have private room. You know, you have your room, I have mine. We
Right.
like that, but they don't like that at all. They'll pile 3 or 4 people in a double bed, full size bed, and sleep that way at night.
That's something that always hits me in East Africa too. Is if you're in a waiting room or something like that. Here in America, if you're sitting there, you're the only one in the room. Somebody else walks in, they're going to sit down. They're going to space out a little bit. They're going to leave a couple of chairs in between
Well,
you.
that's an ideal situation.
Ideal
Yeah.
situation, right? Well, in Africa, that would be just borderline rude. They're trying to avoid you, and so they're going to come sit immediately beside you. And you're being an American, you're looking around like this room is wide open. Why are you sitting right beside me? But it's that companionship type of thing that you're talking about.
I think that's true, and I think that's true of most third world countries. Or for some reason, they just feel like they need to be connected in a way that we don't feel that in Western. It just seems like the more affluent the culture, the more independent we are. And, getting back to why things are the way they are in the Philippines, as far as the church growth and young people and all that, it's just because they are very joyous people. If you can't have fun with Filipinos, you have the problem, okay? Because they love to laugh, sing, have fun, all that. And they love to work, and they love teamwork and togetherness and accomplishing together. And for some reason, there's just that inner drive within them to love the church because it's a family atmosphere. That's what they love about the church, because it's their social club, the church. And ideally, as a Christian, that's the way it ought to be.
So you talked about how the young people there are really receptive, and you talked about how a lot of you have multi-generational homes where people are living close together. Have you found that in the Philippines, are the young Christians able to successfully influence their parents and grandparents, or is it difficult for the older generations to receive that spiritual instruction or influence from their children?
Well, the other way around is better. If the patriarch or matriarch of the family comes to Christ, then it's likely the rest will follow, generationally down to the young people. But we're seeing now, and that's another great thing in the Philippines, it's kind of unique, that's a little surprising, that when the young people are converted, they go back home, and because they're so close and connected with their family members, they even influence their parents. But they do it with Bible evidence. They just open the Bible. And in the Philippines, they believe in God, they believe in the Bible, and 80% of them are Catholic. So they're at least religious in that sense, and there's not much atheism there. So they're able to just go home, and because they're so Bible oriented and they want to please God, when their kids or grandkids show them from the Bible what the truth is, then they more readily accept. So it's a good situation.
So can I ask am I allowed to ask questions?
Hey, you're the boss. You're
Okay.
a big show.
I am Big Show Joe. I need that like a belt.
You
It just says
do.
big belt buckle, Big
Yeah.
Show Joe.
Dear listener, he does have a coffee mug that says Big Show Joe on it. His lovely wife got for him.
That's right. I didn't buy it for myself. I don't have that kind of ego. She does. I'm gonna get in trouble.
She's
for
proud
that.
of her husband.
She's
you know?
proud of me, and I
Yeah.
love it. You know what? That's my favorite coffee mug.
Right?
That's the one I use. That's
Yeah.
my go-to. It's got my name on it. Nobody else can use it. I did buy her one with her. I don't know if anybody's an Office fan out there.
Does it say Miss Big Show Joe?
No, it's one that has her face on it. There's an episode of The Office where they all have coffee mugs with her face. So I got her one with her. I can't drink out of hers. Nobody drinks out of mine. It works out great.
There you go.
So good.
It works out great.
So if it has her picture on, is that a mugshot?
I guess by definition, it is. Dale, what I was going to ask is, not you and Daniel, y'all are on the road or in the air going to your destinations all the time. What's something that those of us that our mission field is the United States, our mission field is our community, what's something we can learn from the process you use in the Philippines? What will translate from your work here?
Wow. I'm not ready for that question. I really don't know.
I know, like, for instance, Alan and I, we were on 2 trips together in Panama and Honduras back several years ago, and we did medical missions. And that brought a lot of folks from the community down there in, and, we wouldn't force them into a Bible study or anything. We're there helping them with their needs, but if you'd like a Bible study, you can come, we'll have one with you. Mm-hmm. And through that, the word was spread. I don't know if they felt obligated or what, but they were very interested in having Bible studies after that, and several were baptized and saved. Can't really do that because of different laws and things in the U.S., but what's something that we could apply? What have you learned that we could apply, that I can apply in this part of the world?
Well, something that would really help the church itself, and then the church reach out for those who are outside of Christ. It would be the idea of togetherness and family in the church, something we used to do 40, 50 years ago, and I remember that because I was a kid then and a teenager. But something I remember in America was we used to visit in each other's homes a lot more than we do now. We've become so isolated and independent, not because of COVID. That was already a part of us before COVID ever hit.
Yeah, COVID's kind of like cemented it in now.
Yeah, it's kind of validated what we already were in a way, I guess, just on a higher level. But we need to get back into interacting with each other on an everyday level. And that's what I'm seeing in other countries, especially a third world country. We can learn a lot from third world countries. They don't have cars and nice things and houses and clothes and lots of money to go out and entertain
themselves.
themselves.
Friendships, they value each other.
It's each other. It gets down to just pure people level on the ground. And if we could get back to that in America, then that's, and just show the heart of Christ and the love of Christ. But it's also looking out. We Americans don't have as many needs that we attend to in the foreign mission field. But if we can just be on the lookout for what other people may need, whether it's a spiritual thing or a material thing, then if we can somehow satisfy that need in some way or make an effort to, all of a sudden it makes people say, wow, those people are different.
Right.
Because most people don't do what they do.
Yeah, I agree with you. This is an oddball example, but they say that's the appeal of street gangs in these big cities, is that they have a group of like-minded folks there, even though, they're doing what they're doing.
Yeah. Well, it's a sense of connection and belonging.
But they belong
Yeah.
to a group
Yeah.
there.
They're just misguided, but still there is that idea of connection. And we need to get back to that.
In Matthew chapter 13, Jesus tells us the parable of the soils. And as you look at that, the sower is sowing the same seed. And no matter what type of soil it is, he's throwing the seed out there. And of course, that's the gospel in our context. But how that's received depends on the quality of the soil, what's going on with the soil, if it's if the dirt is impacted, if it's a good soil, if there's a lot of weeds, if there's a lot of rocks, whatever. And you mentioned you're primarily a church planter. What is it that you look for? How do you find the best soil possible, and how do you decide this is a population, this is a place where we want to target to plant a church?
Well, number one, where there is no church of Jesus Christ, from the Bible, there may be other churches and all, but if it's not, the church of the Bible, then we look for that, number one. But in the Philippines, that's really not a big issue. It's not like we say some places are going to be more receptive than others. They're all receptive. It's just a matter of finding, a place that doesn't have a church.
Alan's got his hand up. Go ahead, Alan.
It's hard not being there. And Dale, you're right about the relationships, and you're exactly right. And this question, I was just curious, do you think technology has hindered or improved the ability to do more evangelism across the board?
Technology has been good depending on the situation. If you can be together in person, that's ideal and that's perfect. That's what you're shooting for. But, I know like Sunset International Bible Institute, they put out what they call a little solar player. You all may know what those things are. They're like a little transistor radio about the size, and they're powered by solar. So you can use it anywhere. Anytime they just lay it out in the sun, it recharges itself. And they have their entire Bible curriculum, plus a whole bunch of a cappella songs where you can play it, and has a speaker on it where it'll project in a room, in a sizable room of maybe where 100 people are. And they can learn songs or sing along, something like that, and teach the gospel with many of the lessons. So that's one piece of technology. We put several thousand of those out in the Philippines, tried to get them in the hands of every preacher, and even sort of everyday working people where they had a business, they play it inside their business, and they would do that. So that's one piece of technology. But when we're talking about this coronavirus situation, I think we're all now familiar with what Zoom is and Skype and video conferencing and all, because we're doing a whole lot of that. I think actually some people say, well, that's going to be an excuse for a lot of people not to come back to in-person church when we get back to that. I think on the flip side of that, we like that technology and we appreciate that we can at least have that. But we appreciate more being in person because we kind of miss each other. Yeah, the technology is great, but we miss being together.
Thank you. You answered mine. Great job. That's what I was after. And I'm like you. I think we all miss being together and desire to be together. But I'm thankful we have that option, and it's just trying to figure out how we can balance it moving forward, in all walks of life, because that door's been open now. So just got to figure out how we can use it for the good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think connection is the best thing that we can shoot for in Christian life, and we're just not doing a lot of that. And I look at myself in the mirror when I say that, because I'm a typical American that sort of has my own life, and I'm connecting through Zoom with the Filipinos right now because I can't travel. But at the same time, even when things are normal, we don't invite people into our home like we should, and we don't go to other people's homes, and we don't socialize on an everyday level. It doesn't even have to be a Bible study or something directly spiritual. It's just, if you're going to go to a movie or going to go out and do something fun, why not grab a Christian and go do it and just enjoy that?
Dale, I really appreciate what you've brought to the conversation here. I think you were the perfect person with what you are doing with the mission work to talk about these things. We had a recent episode that we did on the topic of hell. We had a listener question that we wanted to go ahead and address here at the end of this session. We talked about one of the misconceptions regarding hell is that Satan is often thought of as this overlord of hell, where he's the boss. He's there just torturing souls and getting his kicks out of torturing people. And we talked about how the real biblical vision there is not so much that as he is there suffering himself, receiving his own eternal punishment, and he's in torment himself. And so our dear listener asked us, that being the case, what's his motivation in trying to get as many people to go to hell with him as possible? Why is he so intent on causing other people to be lost? Do you have any thoughts about that?
Wow, that's kind of a deep question, because that takes me back to Revelation 12, where it seems like there was a war in heaven, and that's where Satan kind of came out of that, and he wanted to overthrow God and sit on his throne, and he couldn't, and now here he is. And, and I also get to the principle in life. There are some people in life who aren't happy unless they're miserable. Mm-hmm. And I heard Wayne Kilpatrick many years ago down at the Homewood congregation in Birmingham preach, and he was talking about hell and Satan. And he said, Satan's burning in hell 24/7, and he wants you there doing the same thing. Because he's miserable, he wants everybody else miserable. And there are just people like that in life. They want to bring you down. But Satan, he's on a mission because he's the God of all evil. He's not the Almighty God. And he doesn't have that power over Jehovah God. But I'm guessing because it's his ego. And he's just trying to pull as many people away from God Almighty as possible.
Well, you went to Revelation chapter 12 first, and that was the first passage that came to my mind too when I was presented with that question.
Great minds think alike.
Right, or small runs running in the same rut, I don't know. But one or the other. But in Revelation 12, like you were talking about, you have Satan depicted as this great dragon, and there's this battle, and at the end of the chapter, he's defeated. And the way the chapter leaves us in verse 17 is, so the dragon was enraged with the woman and went off to make war with the rest of her children who kept the commandments of God and hold to the testimony of Jesus. Satan has been defeated already, but in his spite wants to cause as much damage as he can on the way out. It's sort of like a wounded animal that he's dying, but in his rage is going to take as many people out as he can. Or maybe a lighter analogy would be a game where the outcome is already decided, and there's no time to make a comeback. But still, every time, this is Kentucky, so we'll talk about basketball. If your team is down by 15 points at the end of the game, and as those final seconds roll off the clock, that team is still going to launch a half-court shot, right? Every time. Why are they shooting that shot?
Or they're doing the full-court press when they're down with 20 with 30 seconds left.
Yes, they're not going to win, but they want to score every point they can.
Yeah.
That's sort of what's going on with Satan. He's lost, but he wants to score every point he can.
Alan, you had your hand up for the people at home. It's like he's in class. I'm the only one he can see on this Zoom
Well, Alan
call.
is a classy guy.
He is very classy. But go ahead, Alan.
Well, I mean, I want to stay in my lane, but I just, as I listen to Daniel and Dale talk, I think about just that question that Satan seeks to destroy God's mission, God's work. Mark 4:15 says, and Jesus is saying, and these are the ones by the wayside where the word is sown. When they hear, Satan comes immediately and takes away the word that was sown in their hearts. So any good that is being done, any seeds are being planted, Satan constantly wants to disrupt that, intervene, and just create all types of destruction at any given moment. So that's why it's important. I think for us to, as we say, soul training is important because all souls are important. And that's why I'm thankful for that question and thankful for Daniel and Big Show Joe and Dale also. So for the work that Dale is doing also. But I just, that came to mind as you all were talking about Revelation. I just thought about the words of Jesus, Mark 4:15.
And I think on some level too, it's personal for Satan, because I think maybe part of what his animosity is mankind being created in the image of God. We have a very special status within all of creation that even the angels don't have. Jesus didn't come to die and redeem the fallen angels. There's nothing about that we have any record of whatsoever. And so we're this special thing where the angels are more powerful than us, and yet we still have this privileged position. And I think perhaps part of Satan's problem, if you will, is he's jealous and angry about our status in relationship with God and God's affection and favor towards us. And so with that resentment, he probably wants to hurt as many of us as he can. Any closing thoughts?
No, the only thing I want to say is I'm just so thankful that Dale is with us, and I look forward to when I can be in his presence sometime soon, and just thankful he continues to inspire and encourage and improve me just by being Dale Byrum.
And thank you, Dale, for being our inaugural guest, our first guest we've had, period, and the first one that was in studio here. And we want to thank, in addition to Dale for being here, we want to thank you, our dear listener, for joining us today and being a part of this as always. If you'd like to offer us a question, then we would love to hear from you or hear your feedback about things we've discussed. We want to hear your opinions and let you join in the conversation. We'll respond to it as best we can. You can email us at soultrainingpodcast@gmail.com. That's the best way to get a hold of us. And also, we'd ask you to give us a 5-star rating and leave us a positive review to help other people find this podcast so they can be blessed by it too. We hope it's been a blessing to you. We want to thank our elders at the South Green Street Church of Christ for making this possible. And until next time,
I'm glad y'all can't see him.
I'm glad we can't either.
we are too. That's been such a blessing.
Oh, me.
Let the sun shine and we've got soul training. Time to practice what you preach. Ooh, yeah. Yes, we do. We've got soul training.
To learn more, you can email us at soultrainingpodcast@gmail.com, or you can write to us, P.O. Box 503, Glasgow, Kentucky, 42142. That's Soul Training.